How you doing, Mets fans, whoever you're a fan of? It's your boy Wardy, and we're back at it with the latest post-game segment. Apologies in advance if I'm a little laggy here. I can see that I am with the video slightly just because I got a lot of things running, and I got a lot to say here in our latest Metropolitan post-game segment as the Mets lose tonight by a final score 3-1, drop their series against a depleted Rays team in the sense that they have not been off to a great start this season whatsoever, a bullpen that has been absolute pond scum to kick off the season, of course, looks like the best thing since sliced bread against the Mets, and the walks, which has been the biggest issue by far for this Metropolitan team on the pitching side, leading all Major League Baseball in walks per nine, as a matter of fact, would be their demise once again today, paired with a lifeless offense that I plenty to rant about, but I do of a masterful and above expected outing in his Major League debut. Christian Scott, thank you so much for being here, my friend, and you know that you might just be the next big face of this Mets rotation when you're given the Jacob deGrom treatment by this Mets offense. When you have the pitching, you have no offense. When you have no pitching, you have the offense. That's baseball. That's Metsian baseball. We have a lot to break down and what was a stellar debut for Christian Scott and what was a less than stellar outing for this Metropolitan offense. And unfortunately, what we saw there, which was a plunder, however you want to say there, with Mr. Adam Ottavino. Appreciate everyone first chiming in live on a replay. Happy to have you all in here. Fantastic takeaways to take away from Christian Scott today, but I'll just go through the games inning by inning here, and then I'll say everything that I have to say about the young right-hander. It starts in the first where WardyNYM has himself a double. Starling Marte with an opposite field RBI single. He gets to second base then, and that is ultimately how the Mets get the lead, and the only measly run that they had tonight was because of exactly that. As we get to the bottom of the first there, Christian Scott getting a taste of the bigs. It starts off his young career with 3 consecutive hits to say, hey, how you doing? Welcome to the show, baby. And I got to give credit where credit's due, everybody. I know that we all hate thinking about 2006 and all the other heartbreaking memories against Wayno, but Adam Wainwright was absolutely fantastic on call today on Fox Sports. Cannot say enough great things on not only how he approached today's broadcast, how much he spoke glowingly of Christian Scott, how he truly has electric stuff in his eyes, but ultimately just his game breakdown as a veteran pitcher that was in the game for the past 2 decades, the way that Adam Wainwright was. A lot of respect there, and I thoroughly enjoyed the broadcast, all things considered, even though it ended up with the Mets in the loss column. But Yandy Diaz there with a single at the bottom of the first. Richie Palacio, I'm going to butcher the last name there, the man that the Cardinals shouldn't have gave up on, the latest, outfielder, infielder that the Cardinals gave up on too soon, gets himself a double. Paredes with an RBI single. Randy with a strikeout and a double play ends it. And when I say this was massive, Randy Arozarena striking out on 96 heat right down the pipe. Christian Scott says, welcome to the bigs, baby. Oh, I just realized, everybody, I had the run highlights running. That's all on me, and I'm a schmuck, and I apologize to the people that have been watching the first, 8 to 10 minutes of the show and didn't realize I didn't have a switching time. My apologies there, folks, and also apologies there because I did have I had a short stint of how I was speaking with Dexter Henry today there in the highlights, and unfortunately, it isn't popping up the way that I was hoping it would there, but disregard that. It's just showing me from my segment earlier today there with SNY and the New York Post. Let me actually see if I can crop this ever so slightly so that way it doesn't look as bad there. So let me fix that real quick, everybody. There we go. It shouldn't be terrible. And then the highlights will run as well. 1,200, thank you so much for the $5 donation. Scott was okay, but he's not the great Trevor Mayer of St. Sapucky. He's not, but he's working his way up. And if you know, you know. And thank you so much again for that donation, 1,200. I really appreciate it. Happy to have you all in here as we break down the latest in Mets land, as the Mets unfortunately faltered tonight by a final score 3-1, dropped their series against the Rays, follow a game below 500 here. But as we break down the game further here, again, it's a 1-1 ball game because there's an awesome fantastic strikeout on Randy Arozarena from Christian Scott. A lively fastball with so much moxie behind it. Love the attitude, too, on the bump with Christian Scott. The Florida native felt right at home there. And why am I saying I'm butchering? Is it Tropicana Field? Yes, Tropicana Field. Them and Minute Maid, I keep getting confused for whatever reason. Well, I know the reason. Anyways, a quick double play there started by Brett Beatty afterwards. Ends the inning, gets Scott out of the jam there, only allowing that Warner run. That's all she wrote, folks. As we get to the second, Bader with an infield single. Mets don't do anything there. And the bottom of the second, Christian Scott with his first 1-2-3 inning of his young career, including 1 strikeout. That sweeper was a thing of beauty today. Had so much swing and miss. That was his big put-out pitch tonight. And that fastball that was helping tee things up between the fastball to the gyro slider, that's faster, a bit more cut, to the sweeper, that's a little bit slower, but also disastrously Christian Scott, what can I say? The kid was absolutely masterful in his outing today. A 1-2-3 second, a 1-2-3 third that we saw. JD Martinez had himself a single after 2 outs there in the fourth, but nothing to show for. The Mets don't score him, of course. Then the bottom of the fourth, Randy Arozarena strikes out on 3 pitches, his second K of the day, and he looked absolutely silly in doing so. And that was another 1-2-3 inning for Christian Scott, his third consecutive at that point with 2 strikeouts. He retires 12 batters in a row after allowing the first 3 to get on base via hits themselves, but that's okay. And as we get to the top of the fifth, Brett Beatty loves to at least get on base once or twice every single game with a single and a walk. He gets himself his scheduled single today after his big 2 home run and 3-for-4 career game yesterday as the Mets faltered in game 1, 10-8 to the Rays. And then as we get to the bottom of the fifth with 1 out, River there, the catcher, would have himself a single that would snap the 12 retired straight by Christian Scott. And when I tell you that is as advertised, everybody, that is as advertised as one can get when evaluating Christian Scott. What he has done so far at the minor league level this season, he's given up runs in the first inning. He's even given up bombs in the first inning or two. Then afterwards, he retires everyone and their mother, and he has a masterful remainder of his start. That was very much on par with what we saw there at the minor league level. It was kind of insane to see it be that accurate there at the major league level already in his MLB debut tonight. After, of course, River got himself a single there. DeLuca with the fielder's choice. Ramirez with a strikeout. DeLuca would steal a base. Siri then would thankfully strike out to end the inning, and we get out of that jam unscathed for Christian Scott. The first time they had a little bit of pressure going back to the first inning, but not a problem there for Christian. And the top of the sixth, Starling Marte with his second hit of the day. He was the only Mets hitter that actually knew what the hell he was doing today. A single and a stolen base. The Mets would not score there, however, with a runner scoring position. One of the few times they had that available today. And as we get to the bottom of sixth, that just missed out of the zone. Great at-bat that went in Paredes' favor. Christian Scott even had a smirk on his face like a tip of the cap afterwards because how impressed he was with that entire ordeal as it happened. But no less, there was a walk there with 2 outs, and then afterwards, we see Randy lines out, thankfully, to end the inning. So my mistake, everybody. I apologize. Christian Scott, of course, went into the 7th inning. I got them flip-flop for a second because in the top of the 7th, as we saw, McNeil with the walk, and then the side strikes out afterwards. So again, the Mets, once they have a runner on base, they strike out in order from there in a very Metsian fashion, a very Metsian way. In the bottom of the 7th with 2 outs, we would see Rover with his second single of the day, probably butchering his last name, don't really care. Scott comes out of the game. That does it for Christian Scott. Again, final line, 6.2 innings of what we saw, 5 hit, 1 earned run ball, a one walk, and 6 strikeouts on, low 90 pitches. Fantastic outing for Christian Scott. Cannot say enough great things, and I have a lot more to say on him soon, so be on the lookout for that. But as we then get to the second again with 2 outs, Rover with a single, Scott comes out, Reed Garrett comes in. Twice we saw throws from Tomas Nido to Jeff McNeil today. Whose fault was it? One of them was Nido's. The other might have been McNeil's, if not both of Nido's there. I didn't see clearly for the second one especially. But ultimately, 2 of them get to the outfield there, which allows runners to advance. But thankfully there, as we would see, he would steal the base, and then Reed Garrett would strike out DeLuca to get out of that jam unscathed, providing the final line still at 1 earned run there and saving a potential second run from scoring, thanks to Reed Garrett helping out Christian Scott there. We love Reed Garrett and everything he's done this season. With the splitting, the sweeper, you can't ask for much more. He's been an absolute thing of beauty, everybody. And as we get to then the 8th, as we break down here, Marte with a walk and a stolen base, Alonso with an intentional walk, so the Mets again have 2 on with 2 out, and JD Martinez unfortunately grounds out to end the inning. This is where the offense continues being anemic, frustrating, any type of word. By all means, spam in the live chat. Let me know down below in the comments as we're breaking down together the Mets' key takeaways from the 3-1 now series loss that we see in Game 2, a 3-game set against the Tampa Bay Rays, as we go back down below 500 with a current record of 16-17 on the season. At the bottom of the 8th, Adam Ottavino comes in, and this is where the Mets would have their true demise, folks. Diaz with the single, Richie Palacio with a walk, Paredes with an infield single. Poor communication between Adam and Alonso there. It was a little chopper. Adam was conflicted on to what to do there. Couldn't get to first base in time to cover. Everyone's safe. Bases loaded, less than 2 outs. Randy gets on with the fielder's choice because Francisco Lindor does what Francisco Lindor does at shortstop. One of the best gloves in all Major League Baseball. A tremendous grab in the air to then get the, again, sprinting off angle, throw to home to Tomas Nido to get the run around time. You're looking like, okay, the Mets are going to get out of this jam. No, they don't get out of it unscathed. A run would come in afterwards via a walk from a man on the bench in Shenton, who only has a handful of major league at-bats in his career, at least this season, and Adam Ottavino could not get the job done in what was a grinded out at-bat. Again, I didn't think Adam was the absolute worst thing imaginable today, but this was the Adam that we needed to step up like he's been all season long, and he played a hand single-handedly in losing the game for the Mets today. The lack of command, the walks is the big bugaboo, everybody. As we entered tonight's game, the Mets were either the worst or second worst in all Major League Baseball in walks as a pitching staff as a whole. This is something that needs to get addressed and get addressed fast, because in games like today where you have an anemic offense, which unfortunately, whether we like it or not, isn't going to be drastically changing anytime soon right now, at minimum, you hope that you're going to be able to get these quality outs. And for a Mets bullpen that has been nails all season long, has essentially coughed up a game for the first time in a minute that we have seen so far this season. So between Adam Ottavino faltering the way that he did and an offense having absolutely nothing to show, it was a recipe for disaster, which was otherwise a fantastic day, headlined by Christian Scott and that masterful debut, everybody. Continue to let me know your thoughts in the chat here. Very Mets fan thing to say to get rid of, oh yeah, of course we got that going in the chat. Pete Alonso was absolutely horrendous today. I will be the first to tell you that. He has been on a brutal skid that we have seen. And I love Pete Alonso to death, but I'm beyond fed up with Pete Alonso and the streaks he finds himself on. More so because this Mets supporting cast is not good enough right now. They're not locked in at all right now in unison to warrant saying, hey, all right, if Alonso isn't going to give us offense, we know for certain we're going to get it from these other guys. No, there is no certainty there. That's a bigger part of the frustration. That is why us Mets fans kind of feel the way that we do. We get a little hot-headed. We say, okay, I'm done with this player. I don't want Pete Alonso traded by any sense, but I understand the frustration level because it goes with him and others. But especially Pete just has taken some truly lifeless at-bats. And for the guy that's the former Florida Gator, you know, the Tampa guy, you would think that he would be balling out and having better success here against the Rays, but it's been anything but, again, for a Mets team that has not won a game in that ballpark in just under a decade, folks. 2015 is the last time that the Mets were doing any damage. They're winning ball games there against the Tampa Bay Rays. Yes, it has been that long, everybody. But as we go back to the pitching, I want to emphasize further what we got from Christian Scott today, everybody, because there are so many key and very important takeaways. Do you trade Jeff first chance you get? First chance you get, no, because you don't want to trade a guy just for, you know, a bag of baseballs or whatever, anything like that. But let me put it this way. I expect the Mets to absolutely be taking calls on him, be listening by the deadline, but his value is very skewed right now, too. The unfortunate reality is the Mets kind of find themselves in a spot where they're going to be more than likely regretting that extension fast with how things are currently looking. Because again, unless McNeil is hitting 100, 300 consistently and going gap to gap and being clutch with runners in scoring position, there's nothing that he provides for you that you can't replace at, you know, again, what I want to emphasize with you all is the following, everybody. Christian Scott did such a beautiful job tonight on getting ahead in the counts. That was a huge thing that stood out to me. These 1, 2, 3 innings were 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 pitches. I mean, they were just so quick, so easy, especially 7, 8, 9. That was such a thing of beauty there, working those quick outs. Christian Scott with the lively fastball, that sweeping slider, that was his put-out pitch. This was, again, Christian Scott, the hyped-up man that's been leading all of minor league baseball, only trailing Paul Skeens in his strikeout percentage, and also that we see there in his strikeout-to-walk percentage that's well above 30% there in the minor leagues at AAA. Only Paul Skeens, who was, again, the top draft pick by the Pirates last year, who will be hitting the big sooner than later after dominating already the AAA level. Christian Scott, in just a year and a half's time, has now become one of the better starting pitching prospects in all Major League Baseball. And I am obsessed with the fact that, one, this kid's charisma, his personality, his swagger is through the roof. You know, he was giving credit where credit's due to some of the batters from the Rays, and he was absolutely fired up after he got out of that jam in the first inning. He was fired up after a lot of his key strikeouts. He's got moxie on the mound. He's got electricity behind that arm. And I absolutely love that this is not a kid that is relying on having to touch 100 on the gun to have success. He will sit in the mid-90s. He will touch 97, 98 where he tops out. The sweeper, of course, looks brilliant. We see there the sink change that he uses is a split change, I should say, rather. He uses very little, but that's in the back pocket too. The gyro slider that's had so much success as well, helping set up these key strikeouts with the sweeper. Again, a lot of amazing things to say here about Christian Scott, everybody, and I definitely want to know your further thoughts about him. See what Yuki already saying in the chat. Christian Scott better than Jared Jones. I won't go that far. Jared Jones is looking like must-see TV right now in Pittsburgh, which is insane. They have now a two-headed monster in himself there, and Paul Skeens, once he's called up, let's see if they trade them as soon as they did there in Garrett Cole and Tyler Glass now, but you know, we won't go there. We won't go there, obviously. But let's talk a bit more about what Christian Scott provided today. And I want to look at some notes here from my great friend Isaac Groffman. For those that don't know, everybody, Isaac Groffman, a fantastic young Mets mind you can follow on Twitter, who does a great job with pitching analysis and breakdown. He has his own blogs. Check him out. And Isaac is a fantastic contributor on this channel now this season, and really just helping inform me with things that maybe I have missed, especially after a start like this. And I was locked in on Christian Scott. I really didn't miss anything, but we have some awesome percentages that I'm excited to share with you all, which is the following. Again, the four-seam fastball was 50% of his arsenal today. The sweeper was 28%. The gyro slider was 17%, and the splitty was 5%. This sweeper that we saw was his main put-out pitch today. It was a thing of beauty. You know, the sweeper stayed out of the zone enough. He had struggled earlier that we saw in the minors with hitting sweepers and giving up home runs, but outside of that, he again has been dismantling everyone and their mother afterwards in the order. And that's what we see again here at the major league level. You know, he absolutely drilled the zone in the first inning. He was determined to throw everything out there right in the zone and not walk anybody. And I love that about Christian Scott. Christian Scott is one of the best walk rates in all the minor leagues too, which is another factor that goes in hand with why the Mets have been excited to have Scott up here, because he's doing something that most starters for the Mets simply can't do right now consistently, and that's not having a high walk rate. Again, Christian Scott sweeper today, a thing of beauty, and he had a 61.9% whiff in AAA this season, just to show you how unhittable that pitch has been. Over 50% of the time at the AAA level, batters are swinging through that bad boy, and the sweeper has 110 stuff plus, so basically it's 10% better than the average league sweeper. So you know how I talk about WRC plus and OPS plus, right, or ERA plus? What these stats usually mean is average, you know, the average batter or average pitcher. Average pitcher, ERA plus, again, is around 100. Average batter is 100 there. So when we get into their arsenal and their stuff plus is the same premise, but just breaking down how much better is that pitch than, say, league average with fellow pitchers throwing that sweeper. Right now, it's already 10% above league average right now, just from tonight's outing alone. Scott effectively used the outside part of the plate against the righties, which was huge, and the hitters were beyond worried about Sweeney and missing on his nasty sweeper outside the zone. We saw it a couple times that they will then take a fastball or the gyro slider in the zone, and his pitches, again, they tunnel perfectly. That's why Randy Arozarena, his first couple at-bats, he took the first two calls he got for strikes. Nito did a fantastic job with the framing today, especially on the gyro slider, where, again, a little bit more a little bit more movement there that we saw, and it was huge because there were multiple calls clearly out of the zone that Tomas Nido was framing beautifully, and this is the same Tomas Nido that caught Christian Scott plenty so far in the minor leagues this past in AAA this year thus far. So it wasn't only important for Christian Scott to have the type of outing that he did today to kick off his career, it was equally as important, you know, or close to, I'd say, for Tomas Nido to be between himself and Omar Narvaez. And again, if you're going to debate that at this point, you're not looking at the numbers, because all the numbers will tell you exactly that. Again, he had some rookie nerves that we saw there for the most part in the first, but he commanded the zone unbelievably well. And overall, this is an easy, I'm going all the way, I'm giving Christian Scott an A+ grade today out of his outing because of just how good he looked there. We saw, of course, Reed Garrett. The splitting and the cutter were nasty as usual. He's got the slide piece as well. Otto had some bad luck today, as we mentioned, with the batted balls, but ultimately he was unable to execute the pitches that he needed to, especially when trying to eliminate the walks. He just could not do it today for Adam Ottavino, who's been great with the walk rate entering today's game, unfortunately, against the Rays. Sean Reed Foley inherited Otto's mistakes there. He allowed that one walk, which was another run to score, if I didn't mention that earlier in the show already, but you know, it was just the worst spot that he could possibly be in there with that multiple gut runners on, if not bases loaded situation. Not a fun time for SRF there, and ultimately, again, the Mets would lose by a final score of, yes, 3-1, everybody. And as we break down things further, and I'm so taken back by Christian Scott's outing today. I was expecting good from Christian Scott today, but even I was taken back about with Christian Scott being this good. Even if you've looked at playing the film, and we all have, I've watched multiple Christian Scott starts at the AAA level this season as well. Even while you look and you lock in on everything that I can provide at a minor league level, it's a whole other ballgame when you get to see these guys again unveil it once more at the big league level, and it's exactly as advertised, if not better. And I see you in the chat. I legit hate watching the lineup, everybody. Yeah, I don't blame you. Let's take a look at the lineup here briefly before we get on to talking about today's video. Actually, you know what? Let's halt that. Let's take a quick break and head to our awesome sponsor at Sower MLB, because I want to make sure you guys and gals get a chance to enter for your chance to win Mets tickets, where the winners will be announced in a couple days at the time of being live here. So let's hop real quick to my amazing sponsor at Sower MLB. And in case you don't know what Sower is, everybody, Sower MLB is the best MLB fantasy game out there when it comes to building your own team with virtual cards, where the cards vary in rarity, and you can even buy, sell, and trade these cards with your friends or with random people online there through the marketplace that they have there at Sower MLB, available via app and at desktop. And you enter these weekly tournaments. Again, there's 2 at least each week that you enter for your chance to win cash prizes, tickets to your favorite team's games, jerseys, and a whole lot more. And how you do in these tournaments goes directly in hand with how the players perform in real life. So as you see there, when you build your roster, you maybe you want to be biased. Part you're gonna lose because the Mets ain't hitting a lick. So you want to get creative and of course show your bias when you want. But I say have fun with it, be creative. But what we're doing right now with Sower MLB being such an awesome sponsor on the channel, we want to give back to you guys. So all you have to do is by clicking the link to sign up to Sower MLB today, free of charge down below, you can again buy and upgrade cards as you wish to build your team and make it better, because you'll notice that by having better cards in the game, upgraded cards of your favorite players or whatever player you want to choose, then the percentages and the times, meaning, okay, say you have a rare card and it's a percentage of 10%. Then if say your guy hits a home run, it's an additional 10% bonus of points you receive, which again increases your chances to perform well and do well and rank well in these tournaments. But by clicking the link down below to sign up today and to sign up again to join at least one tournament after building your team, as long as you do those 2 simple steps, folks, you're automatically entered for your chance to win Mets tickets. We are giving away to 3 lucky winners 2 tickets of whatever Mets games they want to go to this season, and 1 lucky winner is going to win $100 in game credit that they can then utilize there in the Sower MLB game to build their roster however which way they'd like through the marketplace that they have available for you. So again, good luck to everybody that goes out and plays. Everybody that has been playing, thank you so much for entering. And again, good luck to you all. I'm excited to announce the winners in a couple days here. Again, they will be announced May 6th, so be on the lookout for it then, barring any changes. And shout out to Sower MLB once again for being an amazing sponsor here on the channel. Now, as we head back into this one, folks, I do want to emphasize the heading. Let's talk about the heading a bit today. Okay, as we see here, folks, not good. Not in the offensive end. The frustrating thing is I know that this Mets team is going to be 500 playing this season. I know that they're going to be Jekyll and Hyde plenty throughout the year. It doesn't change the fact that you should rightfully so expect better from this team when you know the talent's there. Yes, you could say, oh, this Mets team isn't great, or yes, you could say, I have concerns about the core. That's all fine and good, but still, this Mets team we all know is better than how they are currently performing on the offensive end as a collective unit here. And WardyNYM 1 for 4 today, of course, with the double and the run scored. 218 average, 733 OPS on the season. Starling Marte 2 for 3 with a 275 average and a 721 OPS. Francisco Lindor 0 for 4 today for Lindor. Less than ideal, of course, Lindor, again, who hasn't had terrible games the past stretch, but he's been up, down, up, down. Again, there's just a lack of consistency. And the same apply. Actually, I shouldn't even say that. The same doesn't even apply with Alonso, because Alonso has been consistently inconsistent now for a good stretch of time. Lindor 202 average, 650 OPS on the season. Pete Alonso 0 for 3, 1, especially with the pitches that Zach Little, or Littell, as you should say, had to offer there against Alonso. JD Martinez 1 for 4 today with a strikeout at 267 average and a 623 OPS. Still searching his first 36 OPS. Brett Beatty should have been batting 6th over McNeil every single day of the week. They should have flip-flopped, but I digress. It's over and done with. But Mendy, something to consider for the days going forward. I know you want to have a deep lineup, but the problem is when you have a rally killer the way that you get with someone like Jeff at times, what are we even doing here? I'm much rather baiting that spot with how things are currently looking. Harrison Bader, 1 for 3 today. Of course, 283 average, 657 OPS. Brett Beatty, 1 for 4, as we mentioned, with 2 strikeouts, 270 average, and a 716 OPS on the season. Tomas Nido, 0 for 3, back down to the Mendoza line, 200 average, and a 591 OPS. And DJ Stewart, of course, unfortunately grounded out there as pinch hit to end the game in the 9th inning. 196 average with an 833 OPS, and he still leads the team in OBP, if I'm not mistaken. Kristen Scott, Reed Garrett, Adam Ottavino, Sean Reed Foley were your pitchers tonight. The Mets were out hit 7-6, but it was a 2-run deficit for a Mets team with an expected batting average of 221. So not, again, it's not even like that they had poor luck. They just didn't. So for the great pitching outings for both Zach Littell, Christian Scott, and then the bullpens respectively. But a lot of frustration here for a Mets team that we not only expect better from, but you are just crying to get better outings from after a Christian Scott masterclass and his MLB debut the way that we saw. Start there with the San Diego Padres. Good for him. Miami Marlins, who announced today they're likely not making playoffs. Wow, color me shocked. Absolutely got it lit up today. Looks like a team very defeated. Looks like a team that isn't going to put any effort in because that they know that their GM already announced that they're not trying this season. So it's not easy, to say the least. Fire Chavez. This is an interesting discussion here, folks. I like plenty about what Mr. Chavez provides to the Mets. But I think there is a fair argument to be had here. I know it's early in the season, but let's think of Chili Davis back in 2021, right? Whether it was justified or not, Zach Scott made the decision after a month or so into the season to make a change on the offensive end because of how much the Mets bats were underwhelming, not playing to their caliber. And in many ways, the Mets have not performed to their caliber on the offensive end consistently. We all know that. And now having Chavez back in the fold on the hitting side of things, while that initially seemed good, I think there are some criticisms. Small ball philosophy. The Mets won a lot of games by grinding out at-bats, never saying die, never rolling over, but very little when it comes to the gap-to-gap ability consistently. Had a lot of heroic outings that we saw there, a lot of great things. But again, it went in hand with the Mets, again, getting very lucky sometimes. Just a lot of balls in play consistently. And I'm all for small ball to a degree, but power is what's going to carry you. Power is what is going to change you. And it feels like the Mets have either one or the other, and there is truly no in between. How much does that fall on a hitting coach, as Chavez is back now in that hitting role this season after being the bench boss last year? And how much is that of an impact a month or so into the season? This is a great question to have. And also, apologies, everybody, if I'm having a connection issues. The two Wardies is because I have my little segment there with Dexter Henry running that I thought was going to look better. Then I realized it kind of looks silly because it looks like it's the same. It's me talking twice when that recording was from much earlier today. Let's see. Now you're preaching worry. We used to pass the baton to the power 100%. 100%. And this is a Mets team that we know has plenty of issues as is, and is once again on the forefront of being far from a consistent baseball team and far from a team that we expect to be dominating the way that they did over that 12-3 stretch. Because let's also not forget, some of the Mets' big wins in that 12-3 stretch were late heroics after they couldn't hit a lick against starters for the opposing team. The Mets are once again proving, again, another outing, any type of competent starter is going to have this Mets team number. Unless you're like Spencer Strider when he isn't off on the IL, obviously. Unless you're Spencer Strider, any other good starter is going to have the Mets number right now with the way that they are taking these at-bats. It's beyond frustrating. I want it to change. We all want it to change. But it's a broken record to suggest that it needs to change right now. It's going to change. No, I would be lying to you guys. I want it to change. But the truth is we have no damn clue when it's going to. And it's going to be an interesting one to follow, not only for tomorrow's series finale, but then as the Mets continue the road trip there into St. Louis against the Cardinals as they try to have a better matchup than last time around against St. Louis, as the Cardinals took 2 out of 3 at home against the Mets. And for a Mets team as well that has a tougher schedule here in the month of May, things ease up a little bit that we see as we get into June, but not taking advantage of the scheduling is also going to come back to bite them in the ass. We're going to look back months later and be like, I cannot believe the Mets did not go out and win these games when he had Luis Severino having a masterful 8-pitch inning outing, Christian Scott having a beautiful debut, the best you could ask for, and Jose Quintana. Fans, I hear you, I feel you. Next week, everybody, I really want to get the live callers started, if not tomorrow, maybe tomorrow, depending on how the game goes, so we'll see what happens then. But I just want there to be entertaining baseball. Truthfully, I would love for the Mets to get on a heater again for us to be excited and anime to have these discussions with, higher viewed shows, and everyone's going bananas. But it's early in the season still. We're in the beginning of May, and this Mets team is 16-17 on the season, so it's pretty anticlimactic right now with the hype level of the club after their 12-3 run, understandably and justifiably so. So that's going to do it for me, everybody. Thank you all so much for watching. I greatly appreciate it. Stay tuned, as we will more than likely be live tomorrow. We are live pretty much after every single Metropolitan game throughout support. Mets lose a heartbreaker tonight by a final score of 3-1, but there's one silver lining, is that Christian Scott is here. He's not only the future, he's the now, and he might just be the next big thing in Queens. Thank you guys again.